This is The Express with Gary Allen, your 360-degree view of the world. Now, here's your host, Gary Allen.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of The Express. Gary Allen with you. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us here on this wonderful Tuesday evening. Hope everybody's had a great couple of weeks. Sorry I couldn't be with you last week. Last minute, my guest last week decided they didn't want to do a radio show. So I took some time off. I wasn't feeling that well to begin with, but things are back to normal, and we've got a great guest on tonight. But before we get to Yvonne, I just want to tell you that you can catch us, of course, on GaryAllenTalkShow.com. That's my website, A-L-A-N. I know everybody spells Allen differently. You can go in there, catch out all the links, all the information that you want on me, find out how ugly I really am to look at. And you can also go on YouTube.com, Gary Allen The Express. And for those of you that are on Facebook with me, when I send out the information that a show, like on Friday or Saturday, when I send it out and it has the blue URL for YouTube, please click on that and listen to the show for a couple of minutes or whatever. I need to get a little credit for that. I'd appreciate it. Pass that along. This coming Thursday night at 7 p.m., this program repeats itself on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com. Thank you, Renee, very much. You can also go into progressivevoices.com, and you can also check us out on the tmvcafe.com. Go into the website, go to the radio tab, and go into archives, and you will be able to immediately connect with me and other hosts. You'll see our little logos there in little square boxes. Before we get into tonight's guest, I just want to say something, and it kind of hit me hard. As some of you know who are listeners of this show, you know I grew up in the Broward County, Dade County area. And what took place last week down in Parkland, Florida, which is northern Broward County, Coral Springs, was horrific, horrible, should never happen. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but I give those young students credit for putting together a group. They're going up to Tallahassee. Apparently next month they're going to have a march on Washington. Unfortunately, the state Senate here in the state of Florida has voted not to take up any gun control bills. This is just as big a redneck state as any there is, where gun owners furiously hold on to their guns. Why someone needs an AR-14 or an M16 to go hunting is beyond me, but I'm not a hunter. After I served in the military, I saw what destruction guns can do. And I don't believe in that adage. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is have a good guy with a gun. And the thought of having teachers having handguns to protect their students frightens me to no end anyway. But my heart and my thoughts go out to those people who lost their children, and to the children who went through this, the young adults. My heart goes out to all of you. Nothing can ever replace the friendships you've lost, the children you've lost, the brothers, the sisters, the cousins you've lost. Maybe through time, it'll all make sense, although how it could, I don't know. But maybe this time, the young people, out of the mouth of babes, my mother used to say, sometimes comes the truth. Maybe this time there will be a difference with an uprising from the young people who are the casualties of these incidences. You would figure after what happened in Connecticut or what happened out in Colorado or other places, there'd be some changes. But the NRA has their grips into so much, and politicians don't want to lose their income. So we will, of course, get onto that at another time. For now, we will just have to deal with it as best we possibly can. My guest for tonight is a young lady named Yvonne Mason. She is a fellow talk show host, an author, motivational speaker, and a bounty hunter. And we'll get into the bounty hunter, and it'll quite surprise you. Yvonne has become a very dear friend to me, a mentor in a sense, guided me through an awful lot of things that I've been going through over this last year. Met her at the radio station at WMEL, where I've been employed for a while, and we became friends. She's one of those people who believes in paying back, paying forward. She's one of the nicest ladies you'll ever meet, and she has one of the kindest hearts that you'll ever come across. And tonight we're going to talk about her extraordinary life, the things that she's accomplished, and the people that she's helped along the way. She is a staunch advocate for the disabled. She takes care of her husband, but I think most of it probably stems from back when she was growing up with her brother Stan. Yvonne, are you with us tonight on the Express?
I am. How are you tonight, Gary?
I'm feeling a little down. I've been feeling a little down all day, but I apologize for that long, lengthy getting to you, but I just felt it was something I needed to say.
One should always say what's on one's heart.
Yes, and you know me oh too well. I don't sit back and not talk about it. And we're not going to get into the political end of anything because that's not what this program is all about. Yvonne, you have been a dear friend to me for quite a while. You have helped me get through an awful lot. But I want to talk about your early years in Georgia. You grew up in Georgia. You're the oldest of 5. And from the earliest time you can remember, as you say in your biography, you always wanted to learn how to write. And from the moment you started writing, you've never stopped. Was it something that you deeply needed to do? Was it something deep within inside of you knew you had to do? And did you understand early in life that this was going to be one of the many things in life you would do?
Well, to answer your last question first, no, it is not something that I knew early on in life I would do. The rest of my life, I was taught to write before I started school. My father owned his own heating and air business, and my mother taught me to write so that I could answer his phones at 5 years old. So writing came naturally, whether it was writing telephone numbers and names or writing my address or writing my name. I always had a pencil in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a very avid reader. When we were sitting in reading circles in first grade and reading those stupid 3-word primers, run, Dick, run, see Jane, run,
yes.
Spot, I was already at the end of the book while the other kids were struggling. Words are important to me. Words have always been important to me, whether they be me writing them or reading something. I read dictionaries. I read encyclopedias. I read anything I can get my hands on because words are power.
Yeah.
And words are knowledge. So the writing became an outlet for me. But then when I was in school and my teachers told me I couldn't write because I wasn't smart enough, and because I didn't follow their dictation, I didn't do an outline, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do that. So for a long time I didn't write because it was never good enough.
Yeah, you followed your own beat.
I did. I always have. I've always followed the band that's in my head and the voices in my head, because if I followed the masses, I would not have been unique. I would have been just another face in a very large crowd. And to me, it's important that we be unique. That's one of the things my brother taught me. It's okay to be different.
Isn't it funny, growing up, they tell us in school, be different, be your own person. And yet they want us to be like you are in the military, which there's reasons for it in the military, but they want you to conform, to be like everybody else. Well,
because they don't know how to deal with a child that marches to its own drummer. It's not the norm. It takes away from teaching to the masses, because they have to teach the masses. And when you have one child that in 7th grade reads in cold blood and then gives a book report on it and fights with the teacher because the teacher said which one was most guilty, and you tell the one that you think is most guilty, and the teacher says, no, that's not right, go redo it, because she said, give me your opinion. Well, I gave her my opinion. She didn't like it. So we went round and round about that. But they don't understand that when you have an artistic child and one that marches to their own drummer, if you just leave them alone, they'll get it. They'll succeed. But they all wanted me to be like everybody else in the room, and that wasn't me.
Yeah, they, with me, until they found out I was dyslexic, excuse me. My teachers used to treat me like I was the dummy in the room, and I went to special reading classes until finally the teacher one day said to my mom at a parent-teachers meeting that for the school, they have those, I guess, a couple times a year for parents show up at night and the teachers are all there. And the one teacher said, Gary's very smart. He's very bright, but I just can't figure out is he just lazy or what? And my father said, I don't know. But he is very smart. And they gave me some tests and they realized they didn't put the name dyslexic on it, but they just realized my brain didn't work 100%. Now, it's not that I'm bad or anything like that. It's just that when it comes to some reading, and especially in math, I'm just not with it. My brain sees things that that most people do see. I don't. But yeah, I marched to my own drummer. In high school, I remember correcting a teacher about something to do with the Civil War. She got terribly upset, and I pointed out that I was right, and she admitted she was right. Did you ever run into any of those teachers that didn't like the fact that you marched to your own beat? Did you ever run into them as an adult?
No. Well, I take that back. My French teacher and I got along famously because he was a veteran of the war, and so he knew what it was like to be different. But no, I never ran into any of my prior teachers. In fact, most of them I don't even remember because they were totally insignificant in my life. They were just an end to a means. The few teachers that I remember fondly, they impacted my French teacher, my band teacher, my 12th grade English teacher, and one of my history teachers. Those teachers impacted me because they were passionate. They marched to their own drummers, and they were passionate about what they did, and they allowed me to be passionate about who I was. Now, like you, math was not my friend, and so because math was not my friend, in grammar school they took my writing away from me and my reading.
Wow.
Yeah, if they had just used my reading and writing to explain math, I would have got it a whole lot sooner.
Yeah.
Because math is words are nothing but math put to words.
Yeah, I just in algebra, I just couldn't remember the formulas and how it goes. And then when they found out I was dyslexic, then they understood things better. I was seeing things differently than most kids do. But as far as reading goes, I had an aunt who was a book editor for Simon & Schuster, and she used to send me books all the time, first editions. Unfortunately, my mother threw a lot of those first editions out one day. I don't know why, but my first book that I ever got was The Count of Monte Cristo. And then The Three Musketeers, and then what was the third one with Dante's? What was it? The third one, Count of Monte Cristo, The Three Musketeers. I can't remember the third one right now. I know E.W. Which reminds me, my producer and you know each other very well.
Yeah, I've known him for a long time.
Yeah, he called me up this afternoon and said, "Hey, how long have you known Yvonne?" EW doesn't want to interfere with the interview, but I said, if there's a question you have, just let me know, and you can always jump in. When did you, at the age of 5, you started writing, and did you understand at that particular time, and as time moved forward, that writing can be a lonely business sometimes?
I understood that I was a lonely child anyway, so it didn't really matter. But what I understood is the things that I wanted to say, I could put to paper better than I could articulate it. Because when I tried to articulate it, people put me down even worse than they did when I wrote. But yeah, writing is not a lonely business. It is something that one has to do alone most of the time.
Yeah, and some writers that I've had on this program, we've talked that sometimes as they're writing, the people in the stories actually become their friends temporarily.
Well, I don't have time to be lonely with the voices in my head because they're too busy arguing back and forth as to who's going to be put to paper next. So being lonely as far as writing is concerned, to me it's a solace because I've been lonely all my life, so I don't know any other way to be.
Is it cathartic for you?
Sometimes, yeah. The first book that I put out was very cathartic, and that was one about my brother. In fact, it was a catharsis for the whole family.
Yeah. We're going to get to Stan in just a little bit because I know how very important he was to you. What was the best advice you got as a young person who wanted to write from a teacher or professor? Because you were talking about some of them you did.
Put it down and don't pick it back up.
Really?
Yeah.
Just put it down and never write again?
Yep.
Who in the name of God was dumbass enough to tell you that?
I don't know, but I want to thank them because look at me now.
Yeah. I mean, you've got, as I said in the little blurb that I sent out today, I don't know if you saw it on Facebook, but, you know, as a little girl, you dreamed of writing, and now you have many published books, which we're going to get to some of the titles, which would scare the bejesus out of me because I didn't even like the movie The Bird. Scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. In 1974, you started writing and about your brother Stan. Tell us a little bit about Dreamcatcher. Failure was not an option, and why it's based on your brother Stan and what an influence he's had on you.
Well, in 1952, he was born.
Hey, so was I.
Well, y'all are the same age.
Yeah.
He when he was 9 months old, he got encephalitis, which is a form of the flu, and it created brain damage. He went into seizures, and then he went into a coma. And you got to remember, at that time, especially in the South, people that were different were hid away. They were put in asylums, or they were put in the back room, and they were totally forgotten. And when he went into the coma, the doctors told my mom, he'll never amount to anything. You might as well just put him away somewhere and forget about him, because you've got one kid and you'll have more. You know, we're like puppies. You just give us away or throw us away and get more. And my mother, who has a very deep and abiding faith, absolutely refused. She said, no. Well, when Stanley came out of the coma, his eyes were crystal clear, and it shocked the doctors. They didn't believe that he would have any brain activity.
How about
that,
huh?
Well, he did. And see, this is why doctors and I don't get along, because medicine is a practice. It's not an exact science.
You know, yes. They always say, my son's practice, you know?
Yes, it's a practice. So what my mother did, and remember, there was no resources for brain-damaged individuals. There were no therapists. There were no research books. There was nothing, because nobody knew anything about brain damage, except after brain damage you became an idiot and they put you away. So Mother brought him home. And he was also club-footed. He was 1/4 club-footed on one foot and completely club-footed on the other foot. And Mother would exercise his feet. And she would talk to him, and I would talk to him, and I would beat on him. And I finally went to live with my grandmother for a while because I didn't know where I belonged in the pecking order, because I was only 13 months old when he was born. And he required a lot of care. And so as he progressed, he taught himself how to walk with cast on his legs. Now, I'm not talking about these little wannabe casts they put on kids' legs. Now, I'm talking about full plaster cast on both legs. And that was to straighten his feet and straighten his legs. Well, he taught himself how to walk wearing those casts. Now, this was a kid that was brain damaged.
Yeah.
He was not supposed to go to the bathroom by himself, not supposed to feed himself, not supposed to talk. Well, somebody forgot to tell him that, because he did all those things more. And he was not speech cognate for a long time, because he was busy learning other things, motor skills. He learned motor skills first. He never crawled. He went from laying flat to walking. Now, this was a kid that wasn't supposed to do this stuff. And so when he wanted to learn how to talk, he would get frustrated, and then he would throw fits, and Mother didn't know what to do with him. Well, she met this wonderful, wonderful therapist who was an absolute pioneer in the field of child psychotherapy and brain damage, and she told Mother what to do, and today Mother probably would be put in jail for it, but she said, look, his cognitive skills are like an animal's. Animals have their own abstract language, and if we listen and pay attention, we can understand them. Well, Stanley's language is abstract. He could not tell us what he wanted, but he would do things, and of course we didn't understand him. So when he would throw a fit, the therapist said put him in a closet for just a very short time, like a couple of seconds, so that he would understand that in order to break that habit of pitch and fits when he couldn't make himself understood, he had to find a new way. And Mother said she stood behind the door and cried because that was her child, and he was in this closet, and she only had to do it once. Well,
isn't it funny? Isn't it funny, Yvonne? Real quick, I just want to say how doctors and supposed authorities will tell you this isn't supposed to happen, but they don't forget to tell the individual, and there's always a miracle or two out there.
Well, I firmly believe that my brother was given to my family for an express purpose, and that purpose was to teach us many things. One of the things that he taught us was everybody in this life has a purpose, and none of us are perfect. We all have flaws. Like you, I have mild dyslexic. I stutter when I'm tired. When I'm really tired, the thing that I'm trying to say is in the back of my head, but I can't get it to the front of my brain to get it out of my mouth. People that know me know that I do sign language with the boxes, and they finally figure it out and say it for me. But it's just something that I know about me. Mm-hmm. But Stanley taught us that if we truly love ourselves like he loves himself, then we can be accepting of people with their disabilities and their flaws, because I live in a right-handed world. I'm left-handed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at one time, and you and I aren't far apart in age, if someone was left-handed, they tried to get you to write right-handed.
Oh, yeah, that was another bane of my existence. Every time I turned around, they were trying to make me write upside down because they wanted me to slant my words to the right, I think it was. And instead of just saying, okay, you're left-handed, no big deal, make it convenient for you, they tried all this different stuff. Well, come to find out, I was the only one in the entire room that thought with the right side of my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. But when I look at people that have disabilities, or I never look at them as disabled, and they never look at themselves as disabled. They always manage. If you get a person who used to be sighted, and for instance they go blind, somehow the other senses pick up, and those intensities increase, and their smell and touch and hearing increases, and it is, if that's the case, then little Stevie Morris wouldn't be Stevie Wonder.
Exactly. And my brother, who was never supposed to walk, much less ride a bicycle, wouldn't have shamed me I was 13 and he was 12. He was riding his bicycle, and I was too scared to get on mine.
You?
Yeah. So I'm looking at this kid, and I'm going, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah, well, yeah. He was sort of the person that led the way for you to say, if I can do it, you sure can do it.
Exactly, because I always lived my life afraid. I was afraid of my shadow.
What?
Believe
you?
it or not.
Oh,
yes,
come on, Yvonne. I've known you a long time now. You're about the same height as my mom, and you're not afraid of anything that I know of.
Now I'm not. No, but for years I was. And he taught me that fear is our own worst enemy, because my brother is fearless. He spent more time in the doctor's office getting stitches in his head than most people spend at work.
We're talking to Yvonne Mason. We're talking to Yvonne Mason. She's an author, a motivational speaker, a bounty hunter we're going to get to, and she's also a talk show host. This is Gary Allen on The Express. Go ahead, Yvonne. I cut you off.
That's okay. But he taught me that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be unique. It's okay to be fearless. And that if you try something and you don't reach the goal, you didn't fail. You succeeded.
Yeah. Which is something else we're going to get into a little bit later on with your motivational speaking. But yeah, I think, I don't know what famous person said it, Yvonne, but I know my father used to say it to me all the time. You show me somebody who's a failure and I'll show you somebody who's never tried anything.
Exactly. And this same man that wasn't supposed to be anything but a vegetable would fly to Florida every year by himself. First, he would come down on the bus. For years, he came down on the Greyhound bus and stay in my mom and dad's condo. And then my sister talked him into flying, and he would fly out of Atlanta, fly into Daytona, take a taxi over to the condo, and if he wanted to go to Disney World, he'd call a taxi, and they'd take him over to Disney World.
Wow.
Now, this is a man with a 74 IQ.
And there are people out there that have had every advantage in the world and are scared to death. I mean, I know people that I went to high school with down in Hollywood, Florida, that have never moved any further away than, say, a few blocks from where they grew up, and have never really traveled any further than up to West Palm Beach or down to Dade County somewhere, because they don't do well out of their own backyard, which I have never understood, because the minute I got out of high school, I couldn't wait to get the heck out of South Florida. I mean, it's just, it's just unbelievable. Well,
you know what the anagram for fear is, right? It's false evidence that appears real.
Oh, well, yeah. Because if you overcome your fears, you realize there was nothing there to fear to begin with.
Right.
It's like the boogeyman. There's no such thing. Well, there was actually. There was my sister used to play a prank on me all the time. But I got back at her later on in life. Janet.
My brother is my yardstick. In that there is nothing that I cannot accomplish if I want it bad enough. There's nothing that I cannot do if I want it bad enough. And he has proven that over and over and over again. And that's why the book is titled Dreamcatcher, Failure Was Never an Option. And when my mother asked him, what do you think about Yvonne writing a book about you and for your story and your face to be out for all the world to see? My brother, who is labeled retarded, was very wise. He said, I am glad because now people will know how I feel.
Oh, that's cool.
How profound is that?
Yeah. We always make judgments about other people, but we never know how they are until we walk in their shoes.
Exactly.
And I really firmly believe that. And you've known me quite a while, and you've been a very much of a mentor to me in so many ways, because when it comes to electronic stuff, forget it. And you know how frustrated I get. Like,
but I always talk you down.
Yeah, well, yeah, you do. I go, I can't take this. I can't get this. You go, Gary, now shut up, or I'll come up there and I'll hit you over the head, which I know you will. So,
not a problem.
No, not a problem. You don't have a problem with that at all. What is Stan doing now? Because I haven't read the book, but where is Stan now?
Stan is retiring in 3 months from Publix grocery stores in Norcross, Georgia. He has 20 years with them, and he could have retired a couple of years ago because he was fully vested. And I said, Stanley, why don't you retire? You can retire and draw your Social Security at 62. He said, no, I want to get my 20 years in. I said, well, why do you want to get your 20 years in? He says, because I get 6 weeks vacation. I said, sweetheart, when you retire, you're on vacation all the time. He said, no, Yvonne. He can't say Yvonne, so he says, Yvonne. No, Yvonne, I get 6 weeks vacation. What he's saying is he can retire and they'll pay him for those 6 weeks and he'll get extra. He's no dummy.
No, they will. I mean, my brother's getting ready to retire in Dade County. He's a school teacher this year. And I said, if you're really fed up, Rick, why don't you just, from say Easter on, just that's that. He said, no, for every day I'm working, I get that money that I didn't use. And he said, I got about 300 days of with like sick days and stuff like that, that if I don't use it, I get money for it. And that's cool stuff. And I said, oh, okay, fine. I work in radio. We don't have that luxury. I'm on vacation now, I guess you could actually say. So when did you become the Yvonne that I know now? When did the fear leave you? And the Yvonne that I know now, who is fearless, who is a bounty hunter, did it happen while you were going through a very rough first marriage?
It happened the day that I kicked my children's father out of the house after 18 years of severe mental, emotional, and physical abuse. And he beat me up that last time. And I made up my mind then, you might kill me, but you will go to prison. And once you're out of this house, no man will ever, ever, ever have the opportunity to do me that way again.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes that to wake somebody up. But I'll be honest with you, I'm stunned. And we're talking to Yvonne Mason, who is a dear friend of mine, an author, talk show host, motivational speaker, bounty hunter, advocate for the disabled, and just one of the greatest ladies I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, next to my own mom. And that's saying something, because I adored my mom. But sometimes it takes something like that. I don't know. I don't know. I used to get mad at my late wife. She's passed on now. We were divorced for 20 years before she passed, but she used to make me angry because she used to like to have the last piece of cake or pie or something like that. And one day I got so angry, I actually took the piece of cake and rubbed it in her face. And that was as violent as I ever got. But she liked it because she liked the extra touch that I gave it, I guess. But just ticked me off that the piece of cake had been sitting there for 3-4 days, and finally she come home and wanted it, and I already ate it. I was watching football. I got hungry, and that's about as violent as I've ever been with anybody. I normally am not a violent person. I stay away from it. In their books that you have written, you have a fascination, or at least you did, with the serial killers, and you wrote a book. Excuse me, about the famous serial killer, Gerard, is it Schaefer?
Yes.
How did that come about that you got involved with this story and the book that you wrote about that? And I don't believe I have. Do I have Silent Screams, I believe was the title?
Yeah, I don't know if you've got it or not. It's a case that happened in Broward County, Broward County, down Fort Lauderdale, and here in Port St. Lucie in St. Lucie County. My husband worked for the state attorney's office. He helped form the 19th Judicial Circuit, and it was the first capital murder case that they investigated and prosecuted. So when I moved down here, we went for a ride over on South Hutchinson Island, and he was telling me the story. And because my degree is in criminal justice, and my first love is, and it's going to sound crazy, but it's not what it is, serial killers. And the reason for that is because they're such a unique personality. Mm-hmm. My fascination goes all the way back to Jack the Ripper. And so he was telling me about this case, and I've read true crime all my life. I read in Cold Blood in 7th grade by Truman Capote. And then I turned around and read Helter Skelter. And I always knew that when I was serious about writing, my first love was murder and serial killers, because I wanted to be a voice for the victims. And that's what happened. Mm-hmm. When Jack told me the story, the girls started getting in my head, and I had to find out more. And when I told him I was going to write the story, he said, Yvonne, nobody's interested in a 30-year-old murder case. And I said, don't be so sure. And everybody that I talked to that were friends of his, police and law enforcement friends of his, they all said, yes, write the story. So I did. It took me a couple of years to get everything together and get the interviews and write the story. And the book itself is very brutal. It is not sanitized at all,
Mm.
because if I sanitized it, it takes away from the girl's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
very important that they be heard. I don't put in there who their boyfriend was, what their favorite color is, what their favorite ice cream is, what their favorite pet was. It's about what happened to them and why. And Schaefer was before Bundy and Danny Rollin. The only thing is he didn't get the notoriety that those two did, because at the time, law enforcement didn't talk to each other.
Yeah.
So they didn't know what serial killing was. Jack said he thought that was just something you ate for breakfast.
I've always had a Mel Brooks thing about serial killers, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, but I always fashioned a guy in a room by himself with a box of Kellogg's Frosted Flakes and 40 other boxes, and all he's doing is stabbing the boxes.
That's sort of what Jack said.
Yeah,
but
you know.
But when it happened and they started connecting the dots, all of a sudden they were getting calls from all over the country of girls that had disappeared, because that was a time when girls hitchhiked. It was just a thing. They hitchhiked all over the country. And when I wrote the book, it was such an emotional experience where Dreamcatcher was cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
Silent Scream was draining.
How was it on you emotionally when you were done?
When I was done, I didn't write for 6 months.
Really?
I didn't write a thing. I couldn't. I was so tired. I was mentally, emotionally, and physically tired because everything that I had went into that book.
You know, when about a year and a half, 2 years after Schindler's List came out, I was out in Los Angeles and I met Liam Neeson, who played Schindler. And I asked him about what he did after the movie. He said, I went home and for like 3 months didn't say much of anything.
Mm-hmm. I can relate to that. And every time I do a television show about this book on Investigation Discovery Channel, I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Because you're living it. You're writing about it, but you're actually living it, and you're going through the torment and the turmoil of what this is. We're talking to Yvonne Mason, who is the author of Silent Screams. She's also a motivational speaker, a talk show host, and a bounty hunter. And you're on the Express with Gary Allen. And by the way, I was going to add this into you. I met Truman Capote a couple of years before he passed away. What a really nice gentleman he was. He was sick at the time, but I just wanted to throw that in. What did you learn about serial killers as far as, is there a common thread, a common denominator that they all share? Is there something about their brain?
The only common denominator they share is they have their own brand of victim. And they are either an organized killer or an unorganized killer. And when I say they have their own brand of victim, in their twisted mind, because I studied them when I was in college, and my term paper was on Jack the Ripper, but I studied them in one of the classes actually in two of the classes I took. And the psychology of a serial killer is, in their mind, they are literally doing a favor to their victims. It's not about the sex. It's not about anything but the power that they have over their victims. And they will stalk out their victims. They will hunt their victims. And they will bide their time, and they will plan their crime. After the book came out, I got several phone calls from older women who were young women at the time who said, Yvonne, I was in the car with that man. He picked me up. It could have been me, but they did not fit his profile.
Yeah,
Serial
I think,
killers,
yeah.
They have their own profile.
But as far as their childhood is concerned, which I don't know how far you delved into it, I'm sure you did a little bit. I mean, it turned out that Bundy used to kill animals and cats and dogs and stuff like that.
So did Schaefer.
Yeah.
He killed sand crabs. He pulled wings off of birds. But he was also, from the time he was about 12 years old, he was also into autoerotic hanging, where he would dress in women's underwear and hang himself to climax.
God,
You ask.
I know, but I just, there's just certain things in this life that I know exist. I lived in Las Vegas long enough to know that certain things exist, but it's like incredible to me that people exist like that. And they're right. They could be our next door neighbor, for all we know.
He was married. He'd been married twice.
Wow.
He had siblings.
I wonder what set him off.
He was destined to be a serial killer from the time he was a child. His father was a traveling salesman. His mother was a stay-at-home mom. And he always said that he was I'm paraphrasing, but he was basically the reason his parents got married, because the way he stated it, it sounds like that his mother got pregnant before. They were Catholic. His mother got pregnant before she got married, so the two of them had to get married, and he was a byproduct of that marriage.
Oh, yeah, that's sometimes the case. I mean, when I worked in the Attorney General's office in Chicago, I actually sat across from John Wayne Gacy. And I'm sure you remember who that is. Uh-huh. And I looked into his eyes, and Yvonne, I spent time in combat. And after a while, you become numb to a lot of things, or the alcohol makes you numb. This man was he was dead. And all he ever wanted to see was pictures of the boys. And there was nothing to see. They were all cut up.
Well, because when serial killers will keep trophies, and the reason for that, and seeing pictures of the boys was like a trophy, because then they get to relive that experience and make it end any way they want to.
And they sexually get off on it in one way or another, either mentally, sexually, but they get off on it.
Yeah, but it's more about the power. It's not so much about the sex as it is the power that they hold over another human being.
Yeah. Do you think that were these men all bullies growing up?
They were, but they were in a way that they were charming. Gerard Schaefer was, if a woman saw him on the street, he was one of the most charming people you would meet. He's very good looking, very charming, and he was lethal. He was deadly. He'd take you off in handcuffs and hang you from a mangrove tree, and then torture you and mutilate you, and then shoot you in the back of the head, and then have sex with you after you were dead, and then cut you up in little pieces to keep your body from being found.
Oh, just an average Wednesday. Just an average Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And he thought nothing of it.
Unbelievable.
He never admitted to what he did. He was tried on circumstantial evidence, and in this day and age, he might have gotten off, but but he played the game all the time. He played a cat and mouse game. He thought he was smarter than everybody, and he was a genius, but he was a deadly genius.
Isn't that funny? As you were talking and you were saying that, I recently saw on television again for the umpteenth time, the judgment at Nuremberg. The Nazis didn't think they did anything wrong.
No.
John Wayne Gacy didn't think he was doing anything wrong.
No, never think they do anything. Ted Bundy didn't think he did anything wrong. Danny Rowland didn't think he did anything. No serial killer ever thinks they do anything wrong, all the way back to Jack the Ripper. In their mind, they justify it.
How were you able to sleep at night?
I didn't.
You say also that you said earlier, and you also put in your biography that Silent Screams gave voice to the victims. Talk about that. Did any of the families of the victims ever come forward to you and say thank you?
Yes, after the book came out, I got it. The first email I got was from the niece of Susan Place, who was one of Schaefer's victims. And she asked me about the book, and I told her, and she said, would it be all right if I called you? I said, sure. So when she called me, she said, would it be all right if my father spoke with you? I said, absolutely. Her father being Susan Place's brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he got on the phone with me, and he said, I just want to thank you for what you've done. He says, because you've shown what a monster that Schaefer was. And I said, well, John, my husband is the reason that this book came to fruition, because he is the one that, told me about the girls, and he is the one that helped put Schaefer away. Would you like to speak with him? He said, yes, I would. Well, before the conversation had ended, he and my husband were in tears. Because Jack went to the crime scene on Hutchinson Island where Susan Place and Georgia Jessup were found.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started, and they worked that crime scene, it's the first major crime they'd ever worked. And when I went to look at the evidence that's in storage at the county clerk's office, he went with me the first time. And as we were going through the boxes of evidence, I watched my husband go back in time, and I watched his whole countenance change to that day. And I had to go back and look at the second box, which was their clothes, and he said, Yvonne, I can't go. I said, I understand. I said, I watched you. I felt your energy, and I knew what was happening. You were reliving that crime and that trial.
Yeah.
And so he didn't go back with me. So when he and Susan Place's brother were talking, they were both crying, and when Susan Place's brother thanked him, that was the most beautiful moment. And then later on, I was contacted by Deborah Lowe's family, and they also said thank you for showing what a monster Schaefer was. And some of those girls have never been found, Gary. In all these years, some of them have never and will never be found.
Yeah, that's the shame. That's the terrible thing. We've got about 10 minutes to go, and I want to kind of switch gears here a little bit. You have been a great mentor to me as well as a great friend. We're talking to Yvonne Mason, who is a talk show host, motivational speaker, bounty hunter. We're going to get to her in just a couple of minutes, and author, and a very, very dear friend of mine. And she also has a radio show called Off the Chain, which is kind of going to be fun to listen to, and it is. She gets some great guests on there. When can people listen to the show, Yvonne?
The show runs Wednesday night through Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio.
And yes, and I'm going to be on there at some point or another between now and the end of time, I think, somewhere in May or June or something like that. Yeah, I'm scheduled for it.
Have it with me. But
I'm scheduled. But you are a great proponent of paying it forward, and it's sort of a philosophy that you have come by. I know EW agrees with me on that. We talked about that earlier between him and I. But as a motivational speaker and paying it forward, what do you say to people about life and about succeeding and what they need to do and being prepared? And, and I mean, what got you involved, with being a motivational speaker, and what are some of the things you come up against in the audience when people start asking you questions? What are the things that worry people the most about the future and being a success in this world?
What got me to speaking motivationally, again, was my brother, because at one time I was very shy, believe it or not. But when I speak, especially to children, I love speaking to children because their minds are like steel traps, and they're not afraid to ask questions. And what I tell them is this: life is neither good or bad. Life is an inanimate thing. It is what we make it. We can choose to make it good. We can choose to make it bad. We can choose to wallow around in self-pity when we're given a hand out of the deck that is less than stellar. Or we can take that hand and we can make it work for us. We can play the hand we have and say, okay, I'm dealt this. What do I want to do with it? Well, I choose to make every day count, because I've lost too many people I love, because life is a flash. It's gone. You can't go back in the past and change the past. You cannot predict the future. You've only got today.
Mm-hmm.
In order to succeed, you don't have to go out and make $1 million. You don't have to go out and be a big Hollywood star. You don't have to go out and write a best-selling novel. All you have to do is live the dream that you have. If you want to be a teacher, go that path. If you get detoured, that's okay, because eventually, if that's what you're supposed to do, you will get back on that path. And everything that you do should lead toward that end goal. If the direction changes and a teacher is not in the cards, that's okay. You haven't failed.
No.
Because the path that you've taken has led you to this place, this new place, so take it and run with it. Don't take life so damn seriously.
Yeah. Do you think that people fear of failure and sometimes peer pressure?
Yes.
They stop themselves from going where they want to go and doing what they want to do.
Because the masses don't want you going there. The masses want you to stay down here in the bottom of the well with them.
Yeah.
And they don't want you to succeed. And success is in your mind anyway. There's an old adage, it doesn't matter how many times you fall down. What matters is how many times you get back up.
Yeah, yeah. There's also a saying that I have, and it's on my Facebook page. If you take no the first time, you'll never get anything done. And actually, I borrowed that.
I don't take no very well. It's not in my vocabulary. If
Yeah,
somebody tells me no, I find another way to get it done. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I
Well,
stole
men
that.
don't tell
Yeah.
me no.
Yeah, I stole that from Johnny Unitas, who played with my brother when my brother was with the Baltimore Colts. But I always find that people have a way of defeating themselves before they even get started.
That's true, they do, because they have no self-confidence. And you're talking to someone who used to have no self-confidence.
Which I still find hard to believe. We'll discuss that at another time. But I swear to you, I find that hard to believe that you never had any self-confidence. Of all the people I know, you have more. I mean, you have to talk me down from the ledge. But
that just goes to show, Gary, that you don't have to live in the world you invent for yourself if it's not the world you want to live in.
Yeah. I mean, because you know me oh too well. I'm not the least bit afraid to take a risk. It's just when it comes to computers, yeah, I'm not too good at them. But when it comes to everything else, yeah, just show me the door and I'm going to go. As I said earlier in the hour interview, which is almost up, we only got about 5 minutes to go. I couldn't wait to get out of South Florida. I couldn't wait to get out into the world. I didn't know what I was going to really do. My out was going in the Air Force, but I wasn't the least bit afraid to stay. I didn't want to stay in Hollywood, Florida, and just be like everybody else. But I think that's part of a lot of people's problems with the lack of success. Now, I think the younger generation today understands that, plus they're better prepared for the world that they live in. As you said earlier, the best ammunition for success is education, and I truly, fully believe that. What's the most common question that you're asked? If somebody comes up to you, what's the most common question that people say to you? How can I succeed in life?
The most common question they ask me is, how did you do what you do? And my answer is this: how bad do you want it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because
if you want it bad enough, you find a way to do it. The radio show was a 5-year dream. It's not something I didn't do it overnight. I planned it for 5 years because I wanted it, because I knew there was coming a time when I couldn't go on events. That was a way for me to stay out there.
Yeah.
Writing, publishing, I decided to do it, and I did it.
Yeah.
Because too many people had told me no through the years, and I said, look, nobody's telling me no anymore. I control my destiny. It is my destiny. If I want it, I go get it, because nobody's going to give it to me.
Last question. Looking back on your life, the incredible life. Oh, and before we close this up, the last question, bounty hunting. How in the name of God did you become a bounty hunter?
Well, I was 54 years old, just got through with 53 years old, just got through with a messy divorce. went to college. I haven't been to college since I graduated high school in '69. Went to college, got a degree in criminal justice, and finally lived a childhood dream.
Being a bounty hunter?
Yep. I wanted to be a bounty hunter from the time I was a little girl.
Yvonne, you're only 5'8", right?
No, I'm only 4'11".
What?
Yeah.
You always appear to be taller to me than that.
Those 3-inch heels work wonders, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. You're such a demure little lady, even at 5'8", like my mother was 5'8", 5'9". But I just can't imagine you, like, what's the guy? Who's the guy with his wife? The guy out of Hawaii.
Bounty hunter? Yeah, damn.
Yeah, I think if you were coming at me, I think pardon the expression, I'd die laughing saying, you're coming for me? I mean,
rest my case. They don't see me coming.
Aha.
They don't expect a 4'11" person that doesn't weigh maybe 100 pounds dripping wet, who since they could throw her clear across the room, they don't expect me. All my life, Gary, I have been underestimated.
Yeah.
What people expect out of me is not what they get.
And that's a shame, because you have got so much in you to give. And you are probably one of the most remarkable women I've ever known. And I'm so happy that you are my friend in so many ways. Huh?
I said, you're quite welcome.
And what do you want people to know about life that you've learned about yourself?
That we are who we are, and we can do one of two things. We can be our best friend, or we can be our worst nightmare. Before we can like or love anyone else, we have to dig deep within ourselves, and we have to pull everything out, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, and we have to examine it. The things we can improve on, we improve on. We take our greatest weakness and make it our biggest strength. We accept ourselves, flaws and all. We laugh at ourselves because we can be quite funny. We don't take life too seriously. And what we do is we accept others on the level they are and help them become who we know they can be.
Well, all I know is you've been a great help to me this last year for a lot of different things, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that you took the time to join us here on The Express. Her name is Yvonne Mason. She is one of the most incredible people in the world. Talk about your website where people can find out about your books and more about you.
You can find me anywhere on the World Wide Web. Just pull up Yvonne Mason. You can also get my signature clothing design on Vita.com under Yvonne Sewell. You can find me on Facebook under Yvonne Mason. And you will know that it's my Facebook page because it has a book cover of Jean Lafitte, the hero of New Orleans, on it. And you can also have my Off the Chain Facebook page. Just look me up. I have web pages everywhere. Just look me up. You'll find me everywhere. You do. And thank you so much, Yvonne. An incredible woman. You really, really are. And I'm so grateful to you. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are quite welcome, and thank you. And yes, you are scheduled. I just don't have your date in front of me. Well, I'm scheduled for something at some point or another, that's for sure. But thank you so much, and we will talk in a little while when I get off the air. All right, dear. Bye-bye. Good night now. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us here on The Express. Don't remember, you can go on my website, Gary Allen, ALAN, talkshow.com. And you can check out all the information you need. It has links to all the podcasts and links to other places you can go and find out about what's going on. YouTube.com, Gary Allen, The Express. Thursday night, 7 p.m., Renee will rebroadcast this program on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com. I want to thank EW in the studio. He didn't push the red button tonight. You can go on our website at tmvcafe.com and go to the radio tab, go down, check out the archives, check out all the old shows that I've done and even some of the good ones coming up. Hopefully we won't have any more breaks. It'll be a new show every week. But until then, folks, I just want to say thank you so very much. And to all of you out there that have been hit by violence or something, or you know people, take care of yourselves and each other, please, and have a good night.
You've been listening to The Express with Gary Allen. Join us here every Tuesday night at 10 for more captivating talk with Gary Allen. See you next time on The Express.